Hello, everyone, and welcome to the new Attack of Opportunity. What's new? Well, we got a couple of things. A new logo. I'm a nerd. I'm a geek. I'm absurd. I'm unique. I love that line. It's from Lil Wayne's, one of his rap songs, and the fact he stuck it in there, I just saw that, and it speaks to me. So, up on the logo it goes. Now, speaking of someone that speaks to me, because he actually does sometimes return my calls and gives me great advice as the years turn by, is Tim Kearney from the Tabletop Terrors product line franchise. Tim, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Dude, thank you for having me on the show. I mean, that's a killer intro. I love the I'm a nerd, I'm a geek, I'm absurd, I'm unique. And it's so fitting because I think it's both of us, which is really cool.
It rhymes. Yeah, I actually secretly dug this up. It's like, my God, I have Tim Kearney on the show. I need something new, something special, something to keep him with me, you know. No, man, thank you so much for being on the show today. Now, we are coming up, as I said before, with these things at our 3rd year anniversary of this show. And I've reached out to people that 3 years ago saw past the spammy guy, saw past the look at me, the hotbed, the out of the gate,
Sure.
you know, and you get into doing it. And I believe a lot of people that do this, like myself in the past, have the best intentions. They start off with, hey, I have this thing. Would you give me some feedback? Post. Hey, I got this thing. Post. Hey, post. Like you stop doing the personable intro to even the 5 or 6 people that you choose you want to share something with, hopefully that they will give you feedback or take it beyond because they're bigger than you or more fun or they're a different genre because you're trying to spread out or whatever. And then you get into that habit of just post, and suddenly you're the spammy guy.
Yeah.
A couple of people that we've interviewed, like Michael Kasevin and stuff, and yourself, Tim, I'll never forget the day that I was very excited about something to share. I believe it like our Dice Before Dishonor All Cavalier pod dropped or whatever. And I was like, oh, hey, so-and-so, you know, look at this, tell me what you think. It's a neat concept. We're trying to be original. Great. This. And by the time I got to Mr. Carney, sorry, it's spelled Kearney, but you said it's Carney.
It's and it's unfortunate. Listen, I apologize. I apologize profusely. It's Carney. And I just think of steering wheel and then I slap my knee. That's how I have people remind. I do mime drive and then I slap the knee and people tend to remember car, knee.
Oh, okay, that's good. See, I was thinking more like Afro Circus.
That works too.
You know?
Listen, for a long time, Austin Powers was like, Carney's small hands smell like cabbage. That was what I was called. Either that or Timmy throughout high school. So yeah, man, either one is totally great with me.
Now, not to make fun of your name, just for people that are just tuning in for the first time, is we have a running joke that common is fun, and common is like the English in all character D&D language. The dwarf speaks Dwarven, but he knows common, which is like English for the human, that kind of thing. And we have this thing going with common is fun. So whenever I run across a word I can't pronounce or I got to check, it is sort of a self-joke. I honestly am not making fun of Mr. Kearney's name. Just to be clear.
Common is fun.
Common is fun. See, he knows it. He knows it, see?
Yeah.
That almost implies he listens to the show, but I think I just told him the story earlier as opposed to him actually. But anyway, today we are here to talk about, first I want to clear up, Tabletop Terrors is your biggest thing. What is that exactly? Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so I'll give you it started out because my brother and I, we tried a few different things. We had a few different, like at the time, now this is 5-6 years ago, so you have to think, we're like, we gotta get a blog going. And so we had this blog called Chainsaw Creative was our kind of thing. And it was this, it's a bunch of different types of creativity. So we would write like short stories and we would come up with art, and it was basically just going to be a blog. And we were like, yeah, we can make some ad revenue and whatever. And so it wasn't taken off for us, and we were putting a lot of time into it and all that stuff. So then my now 5-year-old daughter, almost 6, was being born. So jump to that point, and I'm in the delivery room with my wife, and she's, it's probably 2 hours into like a 10-hour labor. And
oh
this
my
is
God,
the same.
we're 10 hours late. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. It's,
Breathe, honey.
it was quite the. And so my daughter's being born, and my brother and I. And so listen, and my wife knows this story now. It popped into my head because this is D&D Next. The playtest had been going on for a year or two, whatever it had been. So we were really kind of getting into D&D. My brother and I back again. And so anyway, I go, I know what we'll do. We'll do a D&D blog. And so I turn, and with my left hand, now granted, it's not like she's like, oh, the baby wasn't like crowning or anything, but she was definitely in labor and kind of in between. And with my left hand, I pull out my iPhone and I text to my brother, Tabletop Terrors. And I go, D&D 5e blog. What do you think? He goes, yep. And that's how the whole thing was born. We didn't know what we were going to do. So I then took to Reddit. So this is kind of the second part of the story that a lot of people don't know. My daughter was born with her top lip and bottom lip were connected with a piece of skin. So she couldn't actually eat, or it was really difficult for her to eat at first. And unfortunately, the insurance considers that cosmetic. So we had to come up with like $700 or $800. And this is after we just paid for all this hospital and everything. So the bottom line is we're just trying to figure out like where we're going to come up with this money. So I go to Reddit and I basically just called myself Tabletop Terrors. And I say, I will for hire do whatever you want me to do for this new edition of D&D coming out. I will write your NPCs. I will come up with your plot hooks. I will do. Now I had zero experience doing this. And yeah, long story short, I made the money doing that. It was just at the right time. The market wasn't saturated. I was the only guy doing 5th edition stuff. And listen, between me, you, and the new logo there, I really wasn't even doing it correctly, but it was close enough. And so anyway, made the money, got my daughter her surgery, and we were like, yeah, let's do this thing. And we started making books, and the rest is history.
Oh, that's awesome, man. Like the joke behind this show is that sometimes the guests spark a memory and I go on a little tangent, and sometimes they're long. I'm going to try and keep this short. I got so many tangents from that story. First of all, if I text my brother, it would be, isn't your wife in labor right now? Yeah, but dude, yeah, my older brother, right? He played D&D like when we first played back in the day, but he's moved on. The second thing was this labor story, this, like connected to D&D. Okay.
Sure.
When my daughter was born, there was a tornado whipping through the town we were at, and the wife got so bored she was finally like 9 months, she just wanted to like get in a car and go somewhere out of the house, or you know what I mean, like we were gently everywhere you go. But they get to that 7-8 month and they're tired of being huge and hot in the summer and yada yada, you know, type of thing. So I'm like, okay, well, did you want to go over to next town and sit at a buddy's and have tea, and we'll get you all propped up and just kind of game, because you're just kind of sitting there. She's like, great. So we go there, right? And tornado warning, because we had dinner and the whole bit, right? Tornado whips through the streets of this little town, which is like 40 minutes from my house, and knocks trees down, and my wife's water breaks, and we have to go to the hospital, and I'm like, we're snaking trees and all this stuff. And this is my daughter's birth. 5 years later, I'm in a little townhouse, and my mother-in-law lives next door, and my 5-year-old daughter's staying there, and we're about to have my son. My wife's water breaks. I go downstairs. I get the car in 3 o'clock in the morning. Now, this is Bob Cajun. This is the tragically hip song Bob Cajun, where I lived several years ago, where nothing happens. It's 3 in the morning. It's Grandma Town. I mean, sure, a famous band shows up once in a while, looks at the constellations, but other than that, not much going on here. I bring the car up to the door, leave it running. It's 3 in the morning and sleeping in a little town. I go and get my daughter, and I'm coming down the stairs from the next place carrying my daughter, okay? I see my wife and my mother-in-law at the door, okay? Now, if you're a good dad, you've got your bags packed, you got everything, it's in the trunk. We watched the car being stolen driving away while my wife... Okay, and I literally heard them say, "Where's he going?" And I'm like, "I'm right here," carrying my sleeping 5-year-old daughter, like, type of thing. So I give my daughter to them. We get on the phone. I call the 911, and at first they didn't believe me. And then when I finally convinced them, she's in labor. My car is driving away without us in it. She's like, "Oh my God, do you want an ambulance or do you want the police?" No, my mother's-in-law here. We'll go in that car. We're fine, but please send the police. Yeah.
So that's insane.
So
are you kidding me right now?
Oh, the best part is I'd loaned my brother-in-law the car a while back, and he had a juvie record for Grand Theft Auto, like way back in the day. So when they find the car, which was driven up north to break into some highway side restaurant and smoke's stolen, when I got to my car, they had a cop on scene. They had a cop for the break-in, and they had a CSI guy. The CSI guy was excited because when they ran it, like, we got Prince. He's got a juvie record. I'm like, yeah, it's my brother-in-law. It's not your guy.
Wrong criminal.
Yes. But the funny thing is with my daughter 5 years before, like, we were gaming when this happened, and the night of we were gaming, and I remember distinctly, it was one of those nights where, like, we were having ideas about doing something new.
Sure,
You know,
sure. Yeah, yeah.
it's funny how in life you're supposed to really be focused on that important thing, and that's when your brain goes, "Hey, I got this idea. Just give me a second, honey."
Yeah.
You know, like, so when you said you're holding her hand and you got the phone, "Hey man, I got this idea."
Yeah.
It just, that hit home with me, and I'm hoping, because it's not just you and me, there's got to be somebody else out there, you know, share with us your story of how D&D, you know, your child's birth inspired something awesome in your D&D life. I want to hear that one. But, you know, we kind of skipped the first question. The first question I should be asking you, Tim, is, may I call you Tim?
Yeah, of course. I would love to hear what else you'd call me. Are you suggesting you'd call me Mr. Carney? Don't. No.
Oh, come on.
Mr. Carney.
Mr. Carney. Like, I mean, like the Tim Curry, Mr. Carney, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Sorry. How did you first know you were a geek, a nerd, one of us? And was your brother right there?
I kind of always have known. So, like, the cool thing is that we grew up in a house where my dad was, like, reading us The Hobbit as bedtime stories. We always had comic books kicking around. So, you know, growing up, you don't realize that there's a different way. So I think I was always that way. We just had a really cool, fun, geeky house. When I started to, I always knew that I can tell you what was kind of a weird thing is, for me, it's flipped. It was more, I realized not everyone was. That's kind of when I started having the epiphany. I'm like, wait, no, not everybody. And I can tell you pretty specifically when that was. It was in 6th grade, and we all had to choose books to read. And a bunch of kids made fun of me for choosing The Hobbit. And I was like, it didn't like hurt me. I wasn't like, oh, I was like, what are you talking about? It's The Hobbit. They're like, The Hobbit? What is that even? That sounds so dumb. And I was like, no, it's The Hobbit. You guys have never read The Hobbit? They're like, what's a Hobbit? And I thought, oh. And then I sort of started like looking around, and it was like this, you know, Hitchcock pan back where I look that I'm the only one in 6th grade with a Marvel backpack.
and then
so
it
I'm
hit
like,
you.
Oh, this isn't. And now remember, this is way before Marvel was in the mainstream. So to get a backpack with superheroes on it in the year 96 or whenever it was extremely difficult. It was not just going to Walmart. So anyway, that's when I realized, oh, not everyone is this way. And that was kind of interesting, because then I backed it off a little bit through my like later high school years. And then like when I got out of high school, I leaned heavily into it and started like writing comics, and not professionally, but like trying, and getting into art and getting into all kind of creative projects, and kind of brought me where I am today. That's
really cool. So, been jumping around a bit and getting off the rails here. How long have you considered yourself a gamer, like playing the tabletop? You read The Hobbit, you've got the Marvel backpack, you know, the years go by, you start writing comics in high school and stuff. When did you find yourself presented with the D20 and, you know, they sit and we'll go to use our imagination, you know, that kind of thing? When did that happen to you?
Yeah, and so I actually I had a few run-ins with D&D before I actually really got into what I would consider being like a gamer. So just very long story short, I almost started playing D&D like 3 different times, but I could never get it up and going. So I tried advanced with some like obscure friends, and then never got back together. Then I tried 3rd edition with some of my close friends, and then we kind of broke apart. My actual, when I would consider myself a gamer of like, hey, is when we started Tabletop Terrors, where I was like, okay, I'm going to do this thing. And I started learning the rules, and I started figuring out what my play style was. And listen, I'll cop to it, man. Out of the gate, I was like what you were talking about at the beginning of the show. I was a spammy little boy. I was a spammy boy. I was excited, like you said. So like I would go into subreddits. So like on Reddit, the ones that you were only allowed to post once a week, I would post once a day until I eventually got reported.
No,
you know, I no, dude, seriously. And I would use these hot button titles like exclusive and things like, and people would comment. Like I had pop-ups on our website and things. I'm just like, yeah, this is awesome. And people would just nicely comment and be like, hey man, this is a cool site, but you know, why the pop-ups? And it was funny because at the time I'm like, no, that's just what you do to gather information and you get. And then I kind of had this epiphany eventually of like, it's actually more about an actual interaction. And if you think of it in terms of like deposits and withdrawals, I was making a bunch of withdrawals before I had made any deposits. And so then I started making it more about like, I'm going to help. So I'm going to comment on someone's thing before I tell them about mine. And I'm going to really make a heartfelt comment and try to say something nice and give it a good listen and give him my time and give him some genuine feedback. And you know what? People started doing the same back. And then a community kind of sprang up around it. So the if you want to pinpoint when I feel like I entered my current state of this is what I am as a gamer, there's a YouTube channel called A Fistful of Dice, and we played in a campaign called The Provokers. And the first Provokers campaign is when I found my actual role-playing voice and became an actual, like, what I would consider the gamer that I am today.
Awesome. Dude, that is so awesome. And not to mention, like, you were one of the many people that talk with your hands. But
yeah,
I got to say, for you it works. Like, I like this. Can I use this? You know, it's like, is that copyright? Yeah, like, I just love that. Yeah,
that's not copyrighted.
Like,
nope, that's actually that's Creative Commons. You can use it without attribution.
Okay, thank you. That's good. That's good to know. No, that's a really good story, and it makes someone like myself, and I'm hoping the rest of you listening, feel better. Is there's a time for spam. There's a right way to go about it. Now, spam, I guess it's almost a derogatory term. Is like I said, I don't think there's a lot of people that fall into that trap out of the gate. I mean, there is a choice of like, am I marketing? Am I playing for fun? Is this serious or whatever? And I noticed one of the first things you said was, oh, we could have a blog and there'll be AdSense. So there's something to it, because there is a give and take with your time versus, a possible income. Right?
Sure.
Now,
yeah,
I've mentioned this before on other shows or whatever, about the withdrawal and the whatever. As spammy as some of us can be, and is like, oh, look at our Patreon, all that can be. And people are looking at how many people you got your Patreon or how much you might make, or something like that. It's like, there's still no conception of the thousands of hours and hundreds, or in my case, thousands of dollars that have gone into what we do, that we so appreciate feedback, let alone someone actually, helping us with a donation. That just blows our minds. And we talk to fans, and we're like, oh, thank you so much for your $5, and they're like, okay, we love the show. Are you okay? And they're like, dude, you have no idea. This is $60 a year. Like, it's so important. And exponentially. So something we wanted to do was we wanted to show the content first. We weren't like, here's one show, and if you like it, we'll do another show because we need the money and blah blah blah. Yeah, and I'm not trying to peel the curtain away from decent content creation. We just decided, it's like, you know what? Here's 2 shows a year. Year 3, here's 6 shows out of our pocket. We are in debt, but we don't care, because we don't beer and golf anymore. We don't buy some of us buy these video games, but like, the hobby becomes a passion, and the passion becomes worth the money, despite what it might cost you and despite your time, because you absolutely love doing it. People ask me, how are you making out of this? Are you burnt out? I'm like, I'm exhausted, but I'm having the time of my life, because and so what I want, the long-winded way around this next question is, when you decided to start making content, is that defining moment, the blog and, the tabletop content or whatever. Most people are the 99% consumer, watching, absorbing, give you more. And then there's the 1% creator, that type of thing, putting out, right? You're already doing that. You're already creating content, but you're someone I consider next level in that. What made you decide to start actually going to an actual, like, writing a world, like the actual books and supplements, the homebrew stuff that you guys put out? That's a whole other level of content. What made you guys decide to go and start making that kind of content?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And so, the first thing was, I think that I've always been someone who loved to write, And my brother and I have always just been like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if, wouldn't it be cool if? So, you know, during that Provokers campaign, it was me, Matt Click, Barker, and then James wasn't in that campaign, but he was around quite a bit. And so I actually decided to start writing. I'm like, you know what? I have to. It was just in me. It's like, I'm very passionate about this. I believe that unused creativity is not benign. And I believe that if someone is a creative person, they don't find an outlet for it, it's actually dangerous. And it can cause depression and things like that. Like not expressing yourself in a meaningful way can cause people depression and like actually affect who they are as a person and their self-worth. And I struggled a bit with that, being frank with you. There was a time where I didn't have an outlet. And so I didn't realize, but I was in a bit of a depression, a lot of a depression, really. This was years ago, but I was like, I'm just going to start creating. And so what I did was I found an artist, and this artist was up and coming as well. I was like, yeah, I just want to write something. So the artist had a bunch of art of tieflings. And so I was like, cool, tieflings it is. Nothing like ceremonious and chosen and, oh, I'm going to plan this. It was like, no, okay, you got that thing, I'm going to write. And so I just started writing stuff about tieflings straight up. And so I did. And the reason why I did it is because I've always been someone who's like, you know what, if I could just find my thing, I know I could be a good creator. And I did it because I was like, if I can go through this process, and you can still find the book right now. It's actually called The Tieflings of Dragongrim. I wanted proof that I could show other artists and other writers who I wanted to team up with. And at the time, there weren't a lot of PDFs kicking around, right? So the fact that I had a book and was like, hey, you guys want to do a collaboration? Was like, oh, it wasn't speculative. It'd be like if you went to somebody and said, hey, you want to do a podcast? Here go 10 episodes. And they're like, oh, wow, okay. He has the equipment. He has the gear. He has the work ethic. So I feel like that's my long answer to say that I can't help it. I can't help but create. So no matter what I do, I'm going to create no matter where I am. But I'm just so thankful that I found tabletop RPGs to point it toward. Mm-hmm. And not long after that, we started the company Absolute Tabletop. So Tabletop Terrors is me and my brother and a guy named Jeff Doty. James and I are partners in a company called Absolute Tabletop. So we started a formal publisher because we thought, hey, there's something cool here. So we got these other two really cool RPG creators as well. Barker from the YouTube channel Ignite, Inspire the Story, and then Matt Click from A Fistful of Dice. And so the four of us make up Absolute Tabletop. And so it was just kind of meant to be, man. It was just one of those crazy things. So the answer is I had to make the world. I had to get what was in me out of me, or else I would have been in trouble. And luckily I had a really cool vehicle to do it.
Cool. Dialing back to that comment, there's the actor that played Hannibal Lecter. No, stay with me. I can't remember his name.
Anthony Hopkins.
Thank you. Anthony Hopkins did a movie about Picasso. I think it was Picasso or Da Vinci, one of the famous artists. And this guy would lock himself in a room and paint and not even eat. His family would bring him food. And he's like, yeah, I'll get to it. And a lot of people are like, oh, he's sick. He's wrong. Why wouldn't you eat? It's like you can get so wrapped up and so excited about something that you can't eat, you can't sleep until it's out, until it's down. Right?
Yeah.
Now, luckily, I will definitely, like, I'll take 5 minutes and grab a bagel or something and make sure food's going in. But sure. Many nights have you spent where it's like, time for bed, you go to bed and you look at the ceiling and it's like, okay, warm milk. Okay, nope. And you're just on your phone. You're telling somebody something, an idea, a concept, or, that type of thing. And I find myself doing that a lot. That burning, it's got to get out. It's got to get on paper. I need a hard copy because I'll forget in the morning. I'll sleep and I'll be gone. Or, and that driving, it has to come out of you. So I can identify with that. And I think a lot of people, creatives that hopefully will listen to this on your side, listeners or mine, will be like, yes, I'm feeling you, man. Like I totally get it. Now, a couple fun questions.
Sure.
Because as much as I really appreciate this inspiring commentary back and forth, I want to lighten things up. Do you have a favorite? This doesn't have to be an official capacity. This could be like just with the guys, private game or whatever you got going, like over the years. Do you have a favorite class or race or alignment or personality type you like to play? Maybe you could say tiefling, but again, you said it wasn't chosen. Like, do you have a go-to that?
Oh no, yeah,
Yeah.
So for me, I've always liked playing paladins. There's just something really cool about having the ability to heal and the ability to just rain down pain. Being sort of a tank, but also this sort of person who can help and protect. So I've always loved paladins, and I've always had a pretty heavy propensity towards dwarves. Just think they're neat. I love that. So in terms of alignment, I tend to sort of just play my character. I don't really like have one in mind, but if I had to, I'd say it's probably like chaotic good would be like my kind of vibe, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I like doing in terms of like what kind of character to play. It just depends on the campaign, and I like to come up with stuff that's fitting. So I played everything from like a Sherlock Holmes style, high functioning OCD sociopath, which actually sounds terrible, but there's a lot of humor in that. All the way down to like, you know, a bard who has this crazy thing when he sees or smells blood, he turns into this crazy. Not actually transforms, but has this sort of frenzy thing going on. So like just weird kind of twists on characters. I always try to do stuff like that. So let me tell you, my real trick, I love to take characters from movies or TV shows and then do my best at like, I butcher it, but I try to do my best. So like I've played Tommy Shelby from Peaky Blinders skinned as something else. I've played Star-Lord from Guardians of the Galaxy. I've played Sherlock from the BBC version of Sherlock. I've played Martin Freeman's Bilbo Baggins, and I'm no actor, so you'd never know that unless I told you, but it helps me. So I kind of like
you're not an actor. I didn't get the real Tim Carney. Where's your agent? This thing's a sham. No, dude, I am such a movie buff from the 80s. I literally had a conversation last night trying to, because I was actually going to be the player for once, and we're talking about the Starfinder world and Rob Hammond, and one of my players like, just play what you want, man. You finally get to play. I'm like, no, you don't get it. It's like, I need inspiration. I need to see something, and I'll see a picture or whatever, or I'll pick a guy from a movie, and then I'll just know it. And I'll you know, like you said, you'll mutilate the original character with your own version, but you know, it's there. So man, I totally get you on that one. Let's talk about where does the magic happen? Where do you create this content?
So I think it's important to divide that into, you're always going to create. You got to just figure out how you manage the flow of the information. So like it's pretty rare that you have an opportunity to decide when you're going to get an idea. So what I have is so I'm going to answer the question, but it's kind of going to be a different answer, which is
sure, cool.
I'm always creating, but what I've done is I've developed a workflow. So here's what I mean. If I have my way, I like to so if I do get to choose, I have a Microsoft Surface, and I like to kind of just go around the house, you know, whether it's we have a nice like back porch area, I'll sit out there in nature and kind of just write, or I'll sit on the couch, kind of just recline, listen to some music real loud. But I have had to train myself that that's not always going to be the case, and I have to be able to do things anywhere to get the job done. So ideas hit you all the time, right? Like I say, whether you're ready for them or not. So what my workflow is, I put and have a notepad on my phone, and when the idea hits, I type it in or I dictate it in. And then once a week, typically towards the end of the week, I take a couple of hours and I take all of the information from that notepad on my phone and I drop it into the appropriate places that I have segmented off in Google Drive. That helps me a ton. So that way, and the reason why I keep it all that way is because my notepad is backed up constantly. So there's a version in the cloud, and then all of my docs are in the cloud. So I do all of my idea gathering through the week on my phone. I do my writing typically either here in the office or around the house. And by separating those two out and understanding that they're very different has been way easier for me, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. So the short answer is that I can create anywhere, and that's something that I've had to learn.
No, I totally get that. But my guys are they hate that I use speech to text on my phone, but I'll be at work
Sure.
and I'll get an idea, or like I said, just managing said company. We have this year we started Dicewise Entertainment, basically, so it can be in debt instead of me. You know, we have
Sure.
this is the first
Very
tax.
smart.
This is the first tax time, and I'm like, oh, we've been extended in taxes because of the world pandemic right now. Is it good? Because I'm really not ready to face the music of, you know, how much we've spent versus any minuscule write-off I could get. You know, kept going for a year by just living in denial, going, oh, I made a company and it can be a debt, honey,
Yeah.
instead of us. And she's like, she's like,
Show me the bottom line. Just show me the bottom line at the end of the year, dear.
no,
That's what she's saying.
well, no, actually, my wife is great. She actually is a silent partner, like that thing. Like she ponied up, was it like 2 years ago? We needed money for a bunch of stuff, and she gave us her tax return.
Oh wow, that's cool.
And because I didn't have the money off of mine, I got like 300 back, and she got $1,000 back. And you know, like the guys are too busy and can't afford, you know. So, and because I produce, edit, and everything, right? You know, daddy with the money. So I'm like, I bought something and I bought mics, and we did an upgrade like a year or two ago, and the guys are like, great, wow, you know, this costs you money. I'm like, no, you understand, you all work for Cheryl now. You all work for my wife. Oh well, thank you, Cheryl. Well, no, she games.
Thank you, Cheryl.
Yeah, she games, and we've actually had her cameoing in a couple of shows a while. She started off doing a voice for like a magic sword they found. I spent an entire afternoon with one paragraph on a scene, hovering over her, getting her to do these lines in the mic, and she hated it. She hated the microphone. She hated doing it. She sounded like a robot. Sure. I said, great, because it's a magical intelligent sword. You're not supposed to sound like a person. I thought that was a compliment. She took that as, you know, I think she got up and left the room. No, honey, you're supposed to sound like a robot that's like a wooden actor. Blah blah. She just gets up and leaves. Honey, where are you going? We have to finish this.
Honey,
yeah,
dear.
Fast forward to now, where she was playing a halfling cleric that ran with these dwarves. We have this dwarven party that came down the mountain to open a microbrewery in Age of Ashes Pathfinder 2nd Edition. So I've got American and 2 Canadians doing awesome Scottish accents, and the chemistry between a dwarven sorcerer, a classic dwarf, and a dwarven monk is just crazy good. It's like our biggest show now.
That sounds cool.
And then on the side, here comes my wife. Now, these guys have worked together for 3 years. My wife was new working with them, right? She really holds her own for the first 12 episodes that she was in, you know, that kind of thing. And I'm so happy because she was having a good time and everything. And then she, for whatever like a bunch of things going on, and she had to leave the show. But my point is, I guess, or a question for you is, how is this affecting your family life? Do you have a double life where they just like, oh, dad does this thing and locks himself in a room and they're not involved? Or are they subject, like my own family, where I'm like, ooh, because they're the first person to hear my idea if I don't pick a phone, and they're absolutely saturated and sick of hearing about Mongers things for like 3 years. They're just like, yeah, dad, just, you know, tell me the good stuff, you know, okay, you know, that kind of thing. How's it affecting your family? Like, do you know what I'm saying? It's like, do you need to do that wall with a double life, going, okay, honey, I'm going to go be the creative me, and they're like, okay, fine, and then you put it down, and it's like, okay, it's dad and Disney and TV and things and blah, you know what I'm saying? Like, do you have to keep?
I know exactly what you're saying. Yeah, and so
does it saturate your family, or do you have to keep it separate? I guess.
I got to keep it separate.
Okay.
I got to keep it separate. My wife is not really that geeky, and I love that. So she's not opposed to it, but she's not like, so she's really just kind of like my sanctuary and all of it. She's my break away from all of that stuff. So we recently just finished a book, Absolute Tabletop. We did a Kickstarter, and we just finished a campaign setting guide called A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin. And it's a 454 page book. It's enormous, and it took a lot of time to write. We backed it, or we kickstarted it. And we basically, in this process, I just knew, I'm like, this is the book that I have had in me to write for like 5 years. I need to write this book. And there was only 4 of us. And you're talking about a book the size of any of the, you know, Fantasy Flight Star Wars books. It's like a phone book, you know. And so I had a conversation with my family, you know, my wife. My daughter was very young, so she really doesn't remember it, but I had to have a conversation with her of like, babe, this is something that I really think I need to do. And so she's like, okay, I support you. And so we actually just released that book 7 days ago. But during that time, there actually was, like, I would work I would do, I'd work my day job, and then I would come home and I'd work another 8 or 9 hours, and that went on for like 2 years. And then right at the end there, I was going to bed at like 2 and waking up at like 5:30 just to finish it and make sure we get to the backers what we, told them we were going to give them. And so I'll tell you something. I didn't. Now, this is not something you can share before you deliver to the backers, because it's basically like, hey, this is what you signed up for. When you told us you were going to deliver this X, Y, and Z, we gave you the money. So it's kind of cool and cathartic to share this stuff now, because I wasn't looking for pity then. But my daughter, it's kind of heartbreaking, but for Christmas, my daughter asked that Daddy would be finished with her the book so that he could spend more time with her. So it was really hard, man, but we finished it, and now I'm done, and it's worth it. The reviews that we're getting and the kind words that people are saying are just like, so I have an incredibly supportive family, and for a lot of time, especially this last year, Daddy's got to work. And that's where the Surface actually did come in handy, though, because like I'd go and I'd hang out with them in the living room, and I can dial in and just write, and they're watching a show and I'm kind of talking with them. So I wouldn't literally lock myself off in the office every time. Sometimes I'd have to, but most of the time I'd be like, cool, grab the Surface and go out and sit with them, or go out and and I would cordon off time, dinner, and then at least an hour, usually 2 after dinner, is just family time. The phone goes in the penalty box, nothing else. It's just family. So I didn't ignore my family. And then weekends too, I would take Saturday off 100%. And that helped me stay sane. But for me, I have to keep it totally separate. Now, one small caveat, and then I'll shut up. As my daughter gets a little older, she's getting more interested in it. So she'll go, "Oh, Daddy, what are you working on?" And so I'll tell her about monsters, and she'll help me like come up with monster ideas and character ideas and stuff like that. And so she actually got a thank you credit in the book because a few of the monsters were her idea. So
no, that's great.
Maybe that line is blurring a little bit.
I tell you what's in your future. Okay. My daughter is 24, married to my son-in-law, who is a cast member, and is a DM in her own right, because like Daddy being a control freak, just being a player wasn't enough. She wanted the world, she wanted the control, she loved the story. She's huge Terry Pratchett fan, like that old school British humor world, that type of thing, that kind of thing going on. But we managed to get her to cameo in our evil campaign. We just started Hell's Vengeance, and we put up a pilot to see how it do, and she's in it. And I got her playing an NPC that I'm supposed to play, a female rogue that collects the party, takes them on the first mission. So I'm like, honey, I got this part for you. You want to do this type of thing, blah, blah, blah. Kick Jay off the mic. Now they're in Japan right now. So they're 13 hours in the future. So like when we set this up at like 9 o'clock at night or 10 o'clock at night, slot 2 after a live stream to record this, it's like 10 or 11 Saturday morning for them in Japan. And they teach over there. She teaches online and he's in a classroom. And we're always joking. They're like, how is it going from the future? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
And you put someone in a game, and DMs are the absolute best and worst players at the same time, because but so proud that she's into gaming, she has her own thing, that type of thing. Like I said, you go, oh cool, thanks for the monster, honey. You might find yourself like opening a door, going to the basement with the teen players that are rowdy and doing that thing, and it's like, guys, could you please keep it down because I'm writing. And it's like tabletop terrors, and then like through the vents in your house, you'll hear them come up, and like what they say, because it's gaming content, will slip in there, and you're like, damn it, no, not okay.
That's amazing.
The kind of thing. That's what's just saying, that could be in your future. So more Saturdays off, Tim. I'm telling you, you'll never get those years back where they worship you and want you, because now they don't think you know what you're talking about. No, it's true. They don't want to spend time with
listen,
you.
Man,
like
I have to say, like, it has been a really cool thing, and I did. We're done. Obviously, it's a 454 page book. We're catching typos, and we're gonna wait about a month and change before we print. But it's not like I'm reading through the book and there's still things that but it's not nearly what it was, man. I'm enjoying it, hanging out with the family, catching up on shows. I joked with people that I have like, I don't know if you've ever seen the Marvel film Captain America Winter Soldier, but he has this little pocket list.
Absolutely, like one of my favorites of the series. I've watched all of them. Sorry, just see it.
Totally agree. Yeah, so that my joke is I have my little Captain America Winter Soldier notepad of all the stuff I've missed over the last 2 years that everyone else got a chance to watch. Like, watching the whole, I still haven't finished Mandalorian. I still haven't finished The Witcher. I haven't played some seminal games that have come out. I couldn't because of the commitment. I'm really excited.
There's
and I'm
getting
digging
caught
into
up. There's a good question for you. There's getting caught up on stuff for you, and then there's watching stuff that's inspiring. All of my cast burned through Picard, and we're like, oh yeah, we are totally going to do the Starfinder Trifold Chimera conspiracy, because it's just the sci-fi horror thing that we're going to do at 7th level and we've never played. It's too far beyond us. We'll catch up to that, and we've switched gears, right? The Mandalorian is done like an old school Western, like an old school spaghetti Western. I mean, they even have the cracked, and it's brilliant. They've tanked the movies, but this show is absolutely brilliant. And again, you watching it and you get to this one episode where they do a heist. He gets a little crew together, an old contact pulls him out of what he's doing, puts him with the team. They introduce them really quick. They all have a backstory. They all have a history with him, good or bad. They frame it in an episode. And I saw that episode and I blew up everybody's phone. Oh, guys, we got to do this. We got to do, this type of thing. Witcher 2. Matt Witt, one of my cast members, is the 4-man singer for his dad's band, so he can sing, and he'll sing, toss a coin to your Witcher, and we're trying to record. So, sorry, my question for you is, in the past, and even now, was there movies and what was your inspiration, even something you could watch again, to get you back into that writing groove, to get you into the creative juices flowing? You know what I'm saying? You'll see a movie and you're like, oh, hell yeah, right? And some movies you can even just go watch again after a year, because it's like, I need to get that groove back. I got to get those creative juices flowing. Because I'm telling you, watch Picard and Witcher and Mandalorian. That'll keep you pumped.
Yeah, and I think so those are definitely, I'm glad to hear about Picard, because I didn't know. I've heard mixed things, and we'll see. I think I'm gonna like it. But in terms of where I went, so always the Marvel films. I think they're all beautiful in their own little way. So for me, all that stuff is just a masterful sort of, it's like a campaign. It's like a multi-game campaign, the Marvel,
Yes, thank you. So somebody gets it. Sorry.
Yeah, it's no, listen, man, it's a masterclass in character arcs, screen time, and juggling meaningful character arcs over 20-30 people. Masterclass.
And the humor, come on.
And the humor, right. Totally. Yeah. It's serious where it needs to be serious. It's humorous where it needs to be humorous. So that's my number one place. But to kind of bring that a step down, I still am huge into comics. So that is probably my first love creatively, is way different than the cinematic universe, but there are so many different kind of comics now. I mean, what we're familiar with in terms of Marvel, we call it capes comics, which are basically superheroes, but there are so many other kinds of comics. Since about the year 2000, 2003, we have seen a renaissance of these really cool, unique comic book concepts that have nothing to do with superheroes. So my first love has always been comics, and that's where I go, man. I go to graphic novel adaptations of novels and all kinds of new crazy stories. You'd be really surprised at the number of famous writers who have done a comic run, who just pop in there and do 12 issues or 6 issues. And all that stuff's available online now through the Marvel apps and all that stuff. So that's where I go. I crack open a comic book, whether cool. One for my garage or a digital comic is probably my first one. And if not, it's something Marvel, probably the films, but even some of the cartoons and stuff.
I'm finding shows like the Green Arrow, Flash, and of course, one of my personal favorites is Legends of Tomorrow, where they actually use Hellraiser. They actually use, Constantine, which is actually a virtually unknown comic character unless you're right in the genre kind of thing. But it's causing someone like myself to dial backwards, to wiki it, to look into the character, to to go to the roots and look at comics I would have never looked at, and then see the adaptation. Because for me, it's movies and TVs first, and then I kind of go backwards into books. It's just my process. Have you found now, because we were talking off the air about oversaturation, how 5th edition podcasts are oversaturated, and those that stick with their content and their own course, proving they're genuine, should come out ahead, where a lot of people will fall off and drop off, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you have a course for your content for tabletop? Is there a known direction, or are you guys dropping something going, okay guys, something new, What do you want to do now? And it's open, you know. Or do you guys have something like where you're in a, I can't say a mindset or an idea, but you're in a logical let me give you an example. Everybody loved the movie The Matrix. Then they dropped 2 and 3, and a lot of people didn't like them. And I thought, well, why? Where did you think the story was going to go? They had an idea where there was a, like, you know, they had their prophet guy that kept looping. And then surprise, you know, the machines knew about the loop, and they were forming the, like, kill off everybody, start over. And it was an anomaly. It was that one chance that something could change, and they saw it, and they capped it, and they turned it into a loop. And you had all these, you know, the one would come, but the machines were all over that shit, and they just kept turning it into a loop of rebirth, right? He comes Neo, and he's an anomaly, but you add Smith, and what Smith did in the movies was different than the last 7 guys, and Neo a little bit different, and the two of them together caused this big ending and finally change. And people are going, boo. And I'm like, why? Where did you think the story was going to go? Right?
Right.
So that's what I'm saying is, like, I'm not saying, I don't want you to think that you're cordoned off on the rails or stuck, you know, in a mindset. But, you know, is there a logical end of where your tabletop stories, your world of stuff, the content is going or needs to go, and you've got this planned out for the future? Or...
Yeah, that's a good question. So for us, there's 2 separate stables. One is Tabletop Terrors, which is like the video content and like the sort of talky RPG videos. So, like, you know, all of the how-to videos and tips and tricks. And then the other stable is Absolute Tabletop, which is the publisher, where we're like building worlds, and we're finding a really solid footing and like actually coming up with different campaign settings. So first with Tabletop Terrors, we recently just added Jeff Doty, who is a community member at the official Absolute Tabletop Facebook group. So, very long story short, we just liked Jeff. He was a really cool guy, and we thought it would actually round out the kind of personalities we had in our content. My brother and I talked too much. We would go off on tangents. You know, it was just not as direct and usable looking back. So adding Jeff, it also made it so that we couldn't cancel on each other and blow it off, because we're brothers, and it's easy to just go, hey, well, I'm busy with the family, let's just do a video next week, you know. So having that third component in the Tabletop Terrors world and being able to do, you know, Jeff is very mechanically minded. He was a very high level judge in Magic the Gathering for a lot of years, so he has a really good mind for mechanics, but he's also got a really good storytelling bent, so that's actually super helpful. So for Tabletop Terrors, I think we're kind of just figuring out, like, reinventing ourselves. And so the new format we've chosen is quick tips and then a deep dive, because we all love to talk. So we're like, let's lean into it. Quick tips is if you just don't want to hear us talk for 30 minutes, 40 minutes on a topic. It's just the how to improv, better ways to role play, things we've learned about leveling and XP, just the quick, like, if you just want that. If you like what we said and you want to do the deep dive, those are 30 minutes to an hour. I don't know where the content's going on that one. We're going to just kind of see where that goes. So there is no end game for Tabletop Terrors other than keep going, keep growing, keep getting better, you know, whatever. For Absolute Tabletop, we have just released our first full campaign setting guide called A Dead Man's Guide to Dragongrin, as I mentioned. And we have a few other campaign worlds. We have the sort of Lovecraftian sort of like Robert E. Howard, like Flintlock fantasy setting called Gloam. We have upcoming settings called Enkea. We have a sci-fi sort of sci-fantasy setting we're coming out with later this year called Harbinger. And so I'm going to just write a big old check and say that, honestly, my huge goal where I'd like to see is these worlds that we're building go far beyond RPGs. And I would love to see some of these worlds as Amazon originals, Netflix shows. And, you know, that probably sounds ridiculous.
No. Like, say, like, take Firefly, for example, right?
Sure.
There was a genre of Star Wars, this. They come out with Firefly. They take the concept of far future Blade Runner, where there's like Mandarin and American are the two big languages in the world. Then they have the core world's your empire, but they're the good corporation kind of, and then you have these fringe guys, this Confederate state that lost the war. What do you do? The guy left the war, smuggling, and they have this country Western vibe with all kinds of exotic characters. in a very rich world that, you know what I mean? Like there's always room for more sci-fi, another world beyond like the classic stuff. And something like Joss Whedon's Firefly, which unfortunately got canceled, but they gave him a movie at the end. I guess I was asking you, was like, is that what you're talking about? Like you'd like to go there and have it be validated going, look, somebody produced this to show our world, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. Like I think, and this is kind of going off on slightly a tangent, but I think right now we're entering an era where intellectual property is king. With everyone having these streaming platforms that reach millions of people, it's a content war, you know? So it's a matter of who has the show that's going to make people pay $10 a month to dial in, to, you know, to actually pay the subscription to watch. So what I want to do is set ourselves up to be in a place where we have fully developed, very unique intellectual property that is not just reskinned Forgotten Realms. It's really something interesting and new. And, you know, that's a big thing to say. But again, 5 years ago, when I was talking to my brother after my wife, you know, after my daughter was born, I'm like, hey man, maybe one of these days, you know, maybe someday we could have a publisher and make our own campaign setting. That was 5 years ago. And that just happened 7 days ago. So that's kind of my goal for the next 5 years, is if we position ourselves properly, maybe you might see a Dragon Grin animated series on Netflix.
Yeah, no, hey, why not? You know, why not?
You know?
I was blessed enough that found you. Wasn't early in the game when I first found you. You guys were on your way, but you're at that point where like, we're just releasing this book. Like you've been working on it. So I guess I cheated in your world. Like you were just dropping books a couple of years ago when I found you, and this kind of, you're like, all excited about the stuff, right? And I was like, okay, you know, how about an interview? And you're like, oh, we're so busy. And now I'm interviewing you, and you're like, you could say, look, I've come this far. I wanted this back then. I'm doing this, and this is where we're going from here. Can we have any spoilers? Something that's in your future that you know is coming up? I don't know, exclusive spoiler you could treat us with, or we understand if you can't say, but it's got to be something. Come on, Tim. Don't tell your brother.
I can
don't tell your brother. Don't tell Monkey. Just you and me. Come on. What do you got?
Don't tell. Yeah, no, I won't. I won't. Don't tell Mom.
Don't tell Monkey.
So I will. I won't give you a ton of details, but I can say that we have been approached by a miniature creating a mini company, and what started out as just like, hey, let's do a prototype and see if people like it. It's our Marrow, which are like the foot soldiers of Dragon Grin, and it was the most liked and shared picture that the company ever had in their history. And so I will say that we're in talks for a Dragon Grin mini line. And that's not something we've announced anywhere else yet. So that's kind of an exclusive there.
All right.
But it's, listen, if it falls through, then it falls through. But I'll say that prototypes are being sculpted. So we're that far along in making sure the idea has legs. Of course, with all the weirdness going on in the world right now, things are a little bit on pause. But you know, we've got a really cool. I work with an artist, Alexander Kostic, who is just incredible. And he and I come up with some wicked good designs, in my opinion, and they're unique. And so the miniature company was like, hey, this is actually pretty cool if you guys are interested. So you might see a Kickstarter, not by us, but by them, maybe sometime in the near future, with a full line of Dragon Grin miniatures with all unique monsters and creatures and stuff like that.
Awesome. So let's talk about merchandise, where the real movie, where real money is made from the movie. Right over your left shoulder there, I realize I'm looking at something that I'm seeing in your feed here, in your loop of pictures that you sent me. A tabletop, the big double T's over your shoulder. Can you bring that up for the camera? Like, can you reach behind you?
The book.
This, yeah.
So this is kind of an interesting thing. This is a
it's a book. It looked like a wooden. Yeah, it actually looked like it was made of wood in the bag. Oh.
So this is actually created by one of the partners in the company. Barker's wife, Heather, made this.
Oh wow!
And so
how
rad is that?
Is that any inspiration from like the Harry Potter, the book that's under the bed, that kind of thing? Like,
so I honestly, she's a wizard in terms of, that's the Harry Potter inspiration. She's actually amazing at making these. She carves some of the most interesting, intricate stuff in here.
That is crazy.
Absolutely crazy.
So can you just flip it open? Like, it literally is a book, like printed.
Yeah, it's a book, and it's through page folding and cutting. I don't know exactly how she does it.
Oh, okay. But like, it literally is a readable book.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. And so she picks This is I've never heard of this. I don't know what the content is, or do I condone it? It's called The Cutting Season.
Oh, so
by
it's not
Attica
it's
Locke.
not it's not your book. She just
No.
found a book.
She'll find just a cool looking book from I don't know where.
Okay.
Bookstore, Salvation Army.
Yeah.
So this isn't one of our books. She just got like a cool looking novel that's the right size and shape,
Mhm.
and then she carves the logo right in there.
Oh, okay.
So-
That's awesome. So what about
Pretty cool.
what about actual merchandise? Do you have t-shirts, mugs, tabletop, can we get a banner? Can we get a sticker out there? Do you have any of that kind of thing going?
You know what's funny? Maybe it's time. We have never had that. We've always talked about it, but we've never done it. So maybe we could like whip up some t-shirts and stuff with the cartoon logos or the whatever. But that's actually a really good idea of having like the whatever. I've had a few people ask me for like, hey, I would love a Tabletop Terrace t-shirt. Like, oh, one of these days.
Yeah.
Now I have the time though. Being for a while.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, so somebody actually said to me, they were like, hey, I would love a Tabletop Terrace t-shirt. And I just have never gotten around to it. But now that the book is out and I'm not working, 50 extra hours a week, that's the kind of stuff I want to have time to do in the evening. It's just, oh, hey, let's come up with a t-shirt design. Oh, hey, let's put it up. We have access. We have the ability to make t-shirts, and we have a distributor and all that stuff. But because we have t-shirts for Absolute Tabletop, but never for Tabletop Terrace. But I think now is probably the time to do it if there was ever a time. So I will work on getting you some merch.
I have discussed this with other guests, and I want to change my opinion on something. We use teespring.com. Okay.
Sure.
And something that I'm very proud of is we dial the profit right down. We have a charity, like something like that I like about them is like you can pick a charity. We have MS because my mom has MS, and $1 of our sales goes to them. But
Sure.
the companies want, and there's so many, so I'm hoping that before you just grab the first one or the most popular, fish around for companies that have a smaller profit margin for themselves, because
Sure.
they'll start at $12 US. Or $12
Right.
Canadian or US. Then they want another $12 for shipping. So your customer is already paying $25, $30, and you haven't done anything yet. Then you put your logo on it, and they say, they tell you, make sure you get your $12. So it's like, well, as big or as small as anybody is, no one wants to pay $40, $50 for a t-shirt. They will.
No.
But don't,
Good grief.
so we
What am I at a concert?
Yeah, so we dialed our profit margin to like $1, $5, and even that was just so that we could offer 5% off to the patrons, and because it comes out of yours, right? We were like $1,
Sure.
we don't care. And then I couldn't do any discounts to patrons and stuff where like here's 5 or 20% off. So I was like, okay, I can give them 5% off something, but I had to have like $1 to $5 margin, just so that people are paying that ridiculous 30. You're still paying ridiculous, and just recently my son's like, he made himself a little shirt company one summer and had the printing press and made us a bunch of shirts and, charged
Sure.
me out the eyeball for them,
Oh, family.
yeah. There's big companies out there that buy a $40,000, $50,000 printing rig and the shirt goes through it, and it's just like a literal printer, but it's the size of your couch. And you put the shirt in and it will digitally print in every color a beautiful pattern, right? But these are $30,000
Sure.
to $50,000, so you'd have to make a lot of shirt, right? But these companies, they'll still like way overcharge you. There are so many companies that'll be competing. So please, Tim, find one cheaper than I did. Find a company
Sure.
that wants
yeah,
to charge,
so,
right? So that, well, first of all, even if you balance the margin, the money is going to where it should. You, the content creator, to make more content, to do it to your costs, instead of something like me where I just feel so bad. We're not making money off shirts. Thank you so much for wearing our shirt. I mean, like, check this out. You said you really like the shirt. It's your favorite shirt, right? Like,
it is great. I think it is. It is
the
and
Cavalier's creed, it's like polish your armor, stay on your mount. If diplomacy fails, charge with lance, trample with mount, pause for glory, and repeat. And this is our and repeat. Our Cavalier's creed for the All Cavalier Party podcast. Shout out to Joe O'Brien and Troy LaValle on the Cannon Fodder podcast, where they're the Glass Cannon podcast, and they discussed all mounts. They discussed Skidmire doing this one or that one or the other one, and I was like, I am not doing a show they're doing because I love them. And he went with a different show. I'm like, yes, War for the Crown is mine, and then No Direction and the actual team director Christian Fraser like decided to do a podcast on it, and I'm like, nuts. But we love that show, and it's one of our biggest. But we have fun.
We have this phrase in AbTab, and you know how like you're an Avengers fan, so you know how in the first Avengers movie, you know, one of the best lines is that Robert Downey Jr. says, "We have a Hulk," and then you kind of see the whole, you know.
Yeah. So
our line in Absolute Tabletop is, "We have a James," and so James is a web developer, and so the beauty of it is that he comes up with really rad like stuff that we can do that a lot of companies would have to pay a developer for. So we actually, luckily, don't have to use Teespring or any of those other places. We actually go through a direct t-shirt distributor, and then we have it so that they can you buy it straight from our website. We go wholesale to them, they print it and then send it off. And so we don't make a ton of money on them, but there's no middle person. There's no middle company for us. We go straight to so we're our own Teespring. Yeah. And so luckily, and we couldn't do that if we didn't have a web developer, because the way that it all works, it's basically James programmed what Teespring has. And so anyway, so we're very lucky in that regard. Same thing with our e-commerce. Like we sell all of our own books, and you can get codes for our downloads and all that stuff. I wouldn't be able to do any of that stuff. We'd just be using DriveThruRPG or whatever. But right now you can go to AbsoluteTabletop.com, and when you buy that stuff, James has it all magically hooked up so that it goes for us. So we have a James.
If you keep that on $20, like, no, I'm talking $20 Canadian, which is like $15 American. But you go into a gaming store, and I picked up a couple shirts. I got a great shirt that says just a big picture of a D20 with a 1 on it, and under it, in like the actual typewriter font, it just says crap. Like just like very simple. Love a shirt, right? I come home with it. She's like, "You bought another shirt?" I was like, "Come on, it was on sale. It was only $20, you know," kind of thing. And it got me thinking about our own merchandise. It's like, yeah, people will pick up your stuff for like $20 or less, and they'll wear it, and then you have all this free advertising. To me, that's worth far more than like, I made another $5 on another sucker.
Yeah. Oh God, like, yeah. We don't make a bunch of money on the shirts. In fact, same thing. Like, but it's fun.
Yeah, and like, I'm sorry I'm dialing a lot of this back to our process and type of thing, but there's got to be a back and forth. And looking for a contrast on like what someone does that's still relatively new, like myself, someone like you, who's far more experienced, has a team, and not just the audience learning, but I get to learn too.
Sure.
So let's talk about, if you don't mind, some optional questions. What do you do for a living? You know, beyond this or before this, like what paid the bills for you? Because I always find the different walks of life, what people do, doctors, lawyers, ditch diggers, everyone games these days since the 90s. So it's like, what do you do to pay the bills until this could possibly pay the bills?
That's a really good question. So I'm a hired gun. No, I actually,
sorry.
I'm not.
Awesome.
I am not a hired gun. I am the furthest from it. No, I'm a partner in a digital marketing company. And so that is a cool thing. It wasn't always that way. For a while, I did some other stuff, but here in the last couple of years, I've been able to launch out. And so what we do is we do digital marketing for corporations and, help them build websites, do all their social media and everything. And it's funny because, when people find that out, they're like, "Oh, cool, maybe you can help me." And there's usually a quick test, and it's, do you have a marketing budget? And if the answer is like, no, it's like, then we're probably not for you. We're really good with people who already have some money that they're playing with, and they're trying to maximize and optimize what they're doing. And then we make it so that they can do that well without spending more. So we've helped all kinds of brands, and famous ones, not famous ones. So yeah, that's what I do for my day job, is Google and Facebook and all the marketing kind of stuff, and keeping up on that, which is a chore in itself, staying up to date with all that stuff. But so that's my day job, is I am a part owner in a digital marketing company.
Awesome. And I saw it on your Facebook, you were sending me messages, and I was looking for something, a logo, and I went to your personal page, and I didn't see anything on Terrortop Terrors. And I'm like, oh crap. Like, just for a moment, I was like, do I have the right Tim?
That's funny.
I was like, is he going to come out here and go, "So I'm so happy we're talking marketing"? I'm like, you're not the Tabletop Terrors guy,
like,
are you?
Oh no, wrong guy.
Oh, I wouldn't care. No, I'd be like, all right, let's talk to you. Yeah, let's go.
Let's talk marketing. Hey,
sure, yeah,
good, buddy.
An original type of guest, have you back on the show. Tim, I asked you for a 20-minute interview, and you've given us over an hour. Thank you so much for being on the show. I've been talking
man.
to Tim Carney. He might smell of cabbage, but because of self-isolation these days, you're just not going to know. Don't go to a store. Check out his content instead. He's got so much online. On social media, Tim, where can we find you? What are your handles? Where can we find you? Tell us.
Yep. So for Tabletop Terrors, we have Tabletop Terrors everything. So it's at Tabletop Terrors on Twitter, it's Tabletop Terrors on YouTube, and we have tabletopterrors.com. There's really nothing on the site. It's just we own it. And then for Absolute Tabletop, there is absolutetabletop.com where you can find all the books we talked about. And we would invite anyone who is cool to come to the official Absolute Tabletop Facebook group, which is just go to Facebook and search Absolute Tabletop and send a request to join. That's pretty much where you can find us.
Awesome. Tim, thank you so much for being on the show today. And we will see you next time on Attack of Opportunity. Say goodnight, Tim.
Good night, Tim.
No, I'm wrong. Actually, I think I smell cabbage.